You know, it's crazy. Back when I got into high-end audio, SVS was a new company. In fact, at the time, they only had 3 models in their portfolio, and all 3 looked like giant cat scratching posts. Yet, here we are today in 2021, and a lot has changed between then and now. Not only does SVS offer up a full lineup of products, but in that time, they've become the most dominant high-end subwoofer brand in the world. And I think that's due to 2 main reasons. Number 1, they're just really good at marketing, let's call it what it is. But then number 2, they continue to release the kind of products that a lot of people like. Namely, products that offer a high quality base at prices that people can afford. And today, I'm here to talk about 2 of the more popular models under $1,000, the SB1000 Pro and the Micro 3000. So here's the game plan. I'm going to go over some light technical information with you all first, and then I'm going to focus on how they sound and how they compare to one another. So let's start off with the bigger of the 2, which is the SB1000 Pro. So this subwoofer serves as the entry point into the SVS lineup. It's a sealed box design and it retails for $500. In terms of hardware, it comes with a 12-inch woofer, which is backed by a 325 watt Class D amplifier, and this sub is rated at extending all the way down to 20 hertz. Now, if you're interested in more technical information about this sub, specifically as to what the Pro brings to the table over the outgoing 1000, then just click on the description box below and I'll have that information for you. So now let's move on to the Micro 3000. So this is the first micro subwoofer from SVS, and the whole point is to give you that SVS sound from something that has a small footprint. It too is a sealed box design, and it retails for $800. And you may be thinking, whoa, wait a second here. How come the smaller sub is more expensive than the bigger sub? Well, according to SVS, is for 2 reasons. Number 1, the drivers, which are 2 8-inch woofers, supposed to be of higher quality than what you get out of the 1000 series. And then number 2, it comes with a much more powerful amplifier, offering 800 watts of power as opposed to the 325 in the bigger sub. And the Micro is rated at extending down to 23 hertz. And this brings up the big question. Which subwoofer should you get? Because on paper, the 1000 Pro looks like the better way to go. It extends just a little bit deeper, it's supposed to get a little bit louder, and it costs less money. However, the Micro has the higher quality drivers, it has more power. Now granted, that's to help compensate for the small size of the sub, but still, which one is going to be better for you? Well, it's time to talk about that. Okay, so I'm going to do something a little different for this review. You see, usually my evaluations follow a distinct format. First, I tell you about the product, then I go over to performance, and then I go over things like comparisons. But this time around, I'm going to start off with comparisons first for 2 reasons. Number 1, I think this is why many of you clicked on the video, and then number 2, despite the differences in size between both subwoofers, the difference in terms of performance is very subtle and thus easy to talk about. So let's get the comparison out of the way first, and then I'll give you a performance overview of the subs. So first, let's talk about sound quality. This is where I think the Micro 3000 has a slight advantage, because even though both of these subwoofers have an identical tone to them, by which I mean that weighty and strong bass output that a lot of people like about SVS, the Micro 3000 is going to exhibit quicker bass and just a little bit more nuance in the upper bass, particularly at the crossover point. So if you're somebody who wants that classic SVS sound, but you are going to be critical about how that subwoofer integrates with your system, then the Micro 3000 is going to be for you. Now, when it comes to frequency extension and raw output, this is where the bigger SB1000 Pro is going to have its subtle advantages. Because it's a larger subwoofer, it's going to give you just a little bit more of a fuller bass response in room. It's not going to be a huge difference, but if you're in a larger space, you may appreciate that. It'll get just a little bit louder, not to any meaningful degree, but just a little bit, and it will give you deeper frequency extension, which could actually be a big deal to you if most of your use is home theater, or if you're a bass head and you listen to a lot of electronic music. And that brings up the question, then, which subwoofer should you go with? Well, if somebody came to me and they said, hey look, I say that the majority of my use is home theater and or games, and I can accommodate either sub, then I would say go with the SB1000 Pro, or better yet, get 2 of them, and I think that's just a better way to spend your money. However, if you're somebody who's limited on space, or maybe you do 50-50 music listening with something else, and especially if the music you listen to isn't always just bass-oriented music, this is where I think you'll appreciate the slightly better quality of the Micro 3000. So that is going to be it for the comparison. So now let's go over how they perform as a whole. Okay, so now that you're aware of the differences between both subwoofers, it's now time to discuss their overall performance. Now, to be clear, I am not going to break this down into different categories, such as this is the sound of the SB1000 Pro and then this is the sound of the Micro 3000, because it's not necessary. As I mentioned earlier, both of these subwoofers have an identical sound, so what I'm about to say about one is going to apply to both pretty much evenly. So, with that out of the way, let's hop to it, and really, it doesn't matter which subwoofer you're getting. What you're ultimately buying is a compact sealed subwoofer that's meant to deliver jack-of-all-trades bass performance. And I think when most of you listen to it, you'll notice that these subs sound a little larger than their physical size would suggest. They sound very full and they give you this weighty and strong output, just a little bit punchy. And when it comes to tone, they're going to take on this slightly thick and warm sounding character. Now, it is important to note that the Micro 3000 is going to be just a little quicker and more nuanced than the upper bass. Again, we're not talking about a big dramatic difference here, but it is noticeable. So with that out of the way, look, I think this is the kind of sound that a lot of people like, because when you're spending this kind of money on essentially bass boxes, there's a lot of people out there that when they throw on their movies, they want to feel the bass pressurize the room. They want to feel those explosions in their chair. And these subs do a good job of delivering that experience with respect to their size and price. And yet it's not always just about the boom boom, right? It's also about the quality. And this is where I think a lot of people, to include myself, tend to sell SVS short, because the sound quality is good. This isn't just a one-note bass solution. So a good example is there are times to where the SVS sub will sound better with music than some sacrosanct options from the likes of Rel and Rhythmic. And it all just boils down to the kind of speakers you pair them up to. In my experience, if you have speakers that use thick drivers, like for example, pretty much anything Polk Audio has made in the past 20 years, I found that SVS sounds more natural with those type of speakers than subwoofers that use even thinner drivers. Again, just my experience. And it's also worth noting that with SVS, you get the app, and within that amplifier, you can download different profiles for the subwoofer and even customize them so you can really dial in that sub for your taste. And there's a lot of flexibility there. So it's easy to understand why so many people love their subwoofers. You get flexible bass performance and you get a lot of flexibility in terms of setup. So normally, this is when I cut to different sections of the video, but I don't really have much for you. So first, let's discuss compromises. So these subwoofers are fairly compact, they are fairly affordable, and they're more for rooms that are medium to small sized rooms. So if you have a big space and you know you want very loud and visceral bass output, this is when you're going to have to go with a different option. My recommendation, if you want to shop within the SVS lineup, would be the SB1000 at $1,000. That's when you're going to get really good quality and you're going to get that quantity to go with it. But you do have to pay for it. And then beyond that, I would say that SVS is mostly a great value here in North America, but I understand that the prices are a little higher elsewhere. It is what it is, but that's it as far as the compromises are concerned. And clearly, it's not going to be bass for everybody, right? I mean, there are people out there that are just absolutely fanatical about the integration between the subwoofer and their speakers, and they're basically people, kind of like me, that you're going to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on a subwoofer, and you don't actually want to hear your subwoofer. This probably isn't the best match for you. I mean, that's what brands like Rel are about. But again, I think it's a minority of individuals, even though that may represent a large portion of my viewing audience, it's nonetheless worth noting. And then when it comes to comparisons, I pretty much want to focus only on SVS here. Obviously, if you're shopping between Rel and SVS, those are two completely different brands. SVS offers a lighter, quicker, more agile sound, usually integrates better with speakers than SVS does, at least in a general sense, but SVS has a much stronger, much weightier sound, and it's going to pressurize a room a lot better than a similar priced Rel will. So that is going to be it for this general evaluation. So you know what? This is a short video, so why not go ahead and wrap it up? Okay, so now it's time for me to reveal what I truly think about these subs. And I think the best way to begin is to summarize some of the conversations I've had with other reviewers who have also reviewed the same subwoofers. So in a nutshell, we all pretty much agree that no matter which one you buy, you're getting a good value for your money. Not only in terms of sound quality, but also in terms of flexibility, because as I said earlier, it's incredible. All you have to do is place the sub where it needs to go, and then you just sit down from the convenience of your listening chair, you pull up an app, you dial dial it into your system from there. And then you also have different profiles you can download to fine tune that subwoofer to taste. And if you want to go wireless, while you do have to purchase a wireless dongle separately, you can go in that direction as well, giving you this all-around complete solution. And it's easy to understand why so many people love SVS products and why they're so well reviewed. Yeah, to some pedantic viewers right now, they're probably thinking, oh, it's just an advertisement. And you know what, think what you want, but the fact is, it's a really good all-around product that a lot of people like, and there's a good reason for that. Now, between the two, my favorite is the Micro 3000, just because it's really difficult to get a small subwoofer to output as much bass as a much larger sub, to extend down nearly as deep as a much larger sub, all the while sounding as good, if not even better, in terms of overall quality. And that's what they achieved with the Micro 3000, and the fact that it's well under $1,000 is something to be proud of. Now, is it as good as like a KEF KC62? No, it's not. But the KC62 is literally double the cost. And I think for most real-world consumers, this is going to be good enough for most applications that require a small sub with good quality, with really good output. It's an absolute desktop monster, great for home theater, and also really good for music. So, does that mean, though, that this is something that I would use for myself? Well, the answer is, it depends, right? It depends. Because on one hand, look, I'm not the target demographic for SVS and especially these kind of products. I'm a spoiled audiophile. I'm used to expensive stuff. So if I were to use, like, say, a subwoofer or two in my main stereo system, it would probably be something that costs many thousands of dollars. And quite frankly, I'm the kind of listener that's going to spend thousands of dollars on a subwoofer solution that I don't want to hear. I'm going to buy the sub so I don't hear it. I just want natural bass extension in my room, bass that never calls attention to itself. But I'm a very minority group of buyers. Most people don't fit that archetype. Most of you want to experience your subwoofer. You don't mind hearing it from time to time. And if that's you, then brands like SVS and even some of their competitors like SU or HSU offer really good solutions for you. Now, on the other hand, though, I decided to buy the property that I'm in right now, and I'm going to develop a home theater or build a home theater downstairs. And because I have neighbors that are somewhat close, I can't get away with these giant subwoofers that move a tremendous amount of air and will shake the foundation and all that. Instead, I gotta be at least a little bit conservative and courteous to my neighbors. So actually something like this would be borderline perfect for me. And that's a system that I would use for mixed use. It would see gaming, movies, music. That's exactly what it was designed for, and I would have no problem with it. In fact, I'd probably go with the Polk Reserve series for speakers, and that is a beautiful tonal match. That'd be a very complete system that I could be happy with. So for me, it would just depend on the application. But anyways, that is going to be my final take on these two subwoofers. Hopefully you took something away from this video. As always, though, I appreciate you watching, and until next time, peace. So for this bonus section, I want to cover a topic that I didn't cover earlier in this video, which is what happens when you use two subwoofers as opposed to just one. Now, this is going to be for people who are more new to this versus those of you with a lot of experience, so I'm going to simplify everything by saying this. When you talk to people like myself, you'll usually hear that using two subwoofers is better than one. Well, why is that? Well, the short answer is because it's very difficult for a single subwoofer to evenly fill a room with bass while at the same time integrating seamlessly with your main speakers. Now, when you introduce a second subwoofer, you introduce a lot of different benefits. The major benefit is that now when you have two subs, you can better distribute bass into your room. So it sounds fuller, it sounds more seamless, it's easier to integrate with your main speakers, and now because you have two subwoofers at work, you don't need to use the same amount of volume, so when you lower the volume, this gives you more headroom. And of course, yes, you do get louder output. No, you don't get double the sound pressure level. I'd say it's more like a 30 to 40% gain, but you get the same thing that you already like, except more of it, and now it sounds fuller, more balanced, and overall just better. Now, it's important to note that this doesn't change the behavior of the individual sub. And what I mean by that is, in this comparison, I mentioned how the Micro 3000 has slightly better sound quality in the upper bass. Well, using two SB1000 Pros isn't going to change that. Not at all. You're just going to get what the SB1000 Pro delivers, except more of it, and it's just going to sound better in the room if you use two. So that's how it's going to work with just about every single subwoofer, regardless of the type or brand. Something for you to know. Anyway, now for real this time, thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.